Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley reporting from Washington, D.C., talking about the evolution of Iran towards a possible military dictatorship or traditional bureaucratic authoritarian state, but with Ahmadinejad dumping the mullahs. And it's so interesting. After all the breastbeating and the brouhaha about how Islamic fundamentalism is so bad, post 9/11, we've had all this stuff, all the neocons. We're now told that Rafsanjani, an Ayatollah, a mullah, and the most corrupt man in Iran, and probably somebody who's been bought with some of that $400 million that Bush approved for Iran a couple of years ago. We're told that Rafsanjani is a reformer and that it's a danger if Ahmadinejad kicks out the mullahs, right? Grand Ayatollah Montazeri and his cohorts in Qom, the holy city. Somehow that's bad now. If you dump the Islamic and just have the Republic of Iran, that's a disaster. And after 30 years of these mullahs badgering everybody, harassing everybody, telling you what to do, everybody would like to dump them. They're corrupt as the day is long, and they somehow busy themselves with kibitzing in everybody else's life. So I think that's where it's going. Watch Ahmadinejad on this choice he has of a vice president, where again the U.S. is the U.S. coup machine is going to have to be against Ahmadinejad, even though his candidate seems to be open to some kind of negotiated solution with the Israelis. How about that for strange bedfellows? Now, the other interesting quote from Mousavi himself. Remember, we had Mousavi pegged as the candidate of globalization. He wants privatization. He's basically the Austrian candidate over there, I guess we'd have to say. And he wants to help the elite, right? He wants to have the educated pro-Western elite, the rich elitists of North Tehran and the relevant group of desperate housewives. That's the group that Mousavi caters to. So now what does he say? This is now Mousavi talking this past Wednesday. He says the new government being formed by Ahmadinejad could cause domestic and international problems for Iran. And he says the problem is Ahmadinejad is not catering enough to technocrats, managers, and other professionals who don't want to work with him. And the quote from Mousavi is, you have a government, Ahmadinejad, which the elite do not want to work with. The elite. Well, the people voted, and this Ahmadinejad won 2-1. But Mousavi says the elite don't want to work with that government. And on the other hand, the government is not interested in using the experience of the elite, and this will result in a lack of efficiency and legitimacy, which can increase domestic and foreign problems, says Mousavi, speaking to academics and journalists, not to peasant day laborers and agricultural and construction workers or anything like that. In other words, the class basis of the coup is revealed. It is a bunch of elitists, rich, wealthy, pro-Western, educated, internet-oriented elitists in a country where the average person may not have made a telephone call ever in their life. Mousavi's big plank, internet freedom, and the word from the Boondocks was, "What's the internet?" So you get the idea. There's the class basis of this, the elitism, the pro-globalization, he might as well said financial services, because that's really what he's talking about, right? The boys over at Bank Melli and so forth. This is the Obama foreign policy. It's a foreign policy that looks indeed very much like Obama. Now, in addition to Obama, we've also got some of the personalities of the regime running around. We mentioned Biden. Biden thinks that the Afghan war is worth it. But Biden this week has gone to Georgia and Ukraine, he's headed to assure them that the U.S. will support them against Russia, and continues to demand their admission to NATO. Think what it means. The fascist madman Saakashvili, who attacked Russia, a crazy step if there ever was one, right? A lunatic, attacked Russia almost a year ago, right? Early August of 2008. We're getting up to the first anniversary. And now you're supposed to be signing a treaty with him so that you fight and die for the borders of Georgia and for the Georgian domination of South Ossetia. Are we nuts? the United States, the American people, are supposed to commit to the fascist madman Saakashvili? Saakashvili, of course, is doing some window dressing this week. He wants to have democratic reforms after he's been putting people in jail now for the last 3 or 4 months. But the main thing that he wants, Saakashvili wants to be rearmed. He wants to have new anti-tank weapons and all sorts of other weapons paid for by you. When Biden was there, Biden said, hey, Saakashvili, I'm your friend. I gave you $1 billion a year ago. That was when Biden proposed it, and Mad Dog Bush the younger went with it, right after that Georgian attack, the Georgian aggression was rewarded. Of course, with their toy army, they're not going to get anywhere anyway. But this is all absolutely bankrupt. And then he'll go on to Ukraine. He's going to meet the kleptocrats, Yushchenko and Timoshenko. We just hope that Timoshenko would go back to her policy of trying to get rid of Yushchenko so that something might come out of Ukraine. But you do get the idea. The other person traveling, in addition to Biden, is Hillary, and this is just dismal. This is just awful. Poor Mrs. Clinton. She's always obsessed by the idea that she's going to be considered weak. She's got to go back to her warmonger posturing. This is the stuff that lost her the election. She could have been president if she hadn't insisted on warmongering in the Democratic primaries of all places. So she does, of course, try to embrace the soft power doctrine, which is the dominant one of this administration. She went to the ASEAN meeting. Condi Rice had snubbed them 2 years out of the last 3. But Hillary has gotten into this mudslinging match with the North Korean press agency. They describe her as a pensioner out on a shopping trip. She says they're infantile. They say she's infantile. She says they're isolated. They say that she's arrogant and deluded, and on and on. So there may be a reason for that, but I can't see one at the moment. The other thing that she did was she went back to her nuclear deterrence against Iran, right? The idea that if Iran attacks Israel, there'll be a crushing nuclear retaliatory blow. Now, remember, compared to the neocon position, that's somewhat better, even though it sounds worse. The neocon position is attack Iran immediately, no matter what they do. That's not going to fly. But so now she says nuclear deterrence, and even so, Netanyahu and Avigdor Lieberman and the rest of these characters have come up saying, how dare you? You're accepting the idea that Iran is going to get nuclear weapons. Well, there it is. The most interesting thing on Hillary's trip, she went to India, and she's billed as an India-phile. She loves India. Of course, this is no coincidence. The poor Indians have been singled out as the kamikaze puppet, the expendable asset under the U.S.-India nuclear deal passed about a year ago, so that they'll be used against Russia and China. There are forces in India that don't want to go along, and actually we have one. When she was over there, the other thing that the U.S. wants to do to India, of course, is to strangle their economic development, such as it is, to abort the progress of India into the modern age with this absurd global warming myth and the relevant cap-and-trade carbon tax, carbon emissions limits. And there was a very interesting exchange between Hillary and the environmental minister of India saying, we reject any legally binding limits on carbon emissions for India, and that's the end of it. This, of course, reinforces the failure of Obama in L'Aquila at the Group of Eight, where he was rebuffed by Lula of Brazil and by all the other leading third world states, the other developing countries. So we've got basically China, Brazil, India, and the developing sector in general saying no to the rich elitist Malthusians, no to the global warming fanatics. We don't care about your polar bear obsession. We've got to have economic development for our people. So that, I think, is an interesting thing. And it may be his frustration over this that got Mrs. Clinton going in her really degrading exchange, I think, with the people up there in North Korea. So that's what it is. Biden and Hillary now the face of the U.S. along with Obama. We'll be back in a minute.